Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you, Blair Brylawski. Blair is the founder and owner of Revit Otto. Welcome to the show, Blair.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to get into it. But before that, if you could just give the audience, Blair, a general overview of who is Revit Otto.
Yeah, absolutely. So Revit Otto, I started it about 9 years ago, coming up on year 10 actually here of June of 2023. The full name is Revitalization Otto. We really care about helping the community. We specialize in helping small business owners better manage their mechanical needs. So what we tell people is we optimize fleet efficiencies to increase your company's profitability. And we've been in the automotive community, ever since I was younger, before I could even drive. If you're familiar with the TV show Junkyard Empire and Motor Trend, I was a producer on that show, as well as one of the on-camera talent builders. That was a really fantastic experience. And you may recognize us from YouTube. We've helped over 7 million people help save money on their auto repair so far. So that's just the self-help videos that we put out there. But our main focus is helping other small business owners become more profitable, and we do it by managing their fleet way more efficiently than they ever have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so much I can't wait to get into with you, Blair. I mean, your following, especially YouTube, how you've grown it. I mean, you have over 18,000 right now and growing, and other digital media that you and your team there are doing. I can't wait to go into all that.
Yeah.
Are you originally from the DMV, or where did you
grow? I was born in Holy Cross. Grew up in Silver Spring. Parents got divorced when I was young, so I moved around from like Olney to North Bethesda, which used to just be called Rockville. For all you old heads here in Moco. And I've been in Montgomery County most of my life. I went to university. I went to college in Shepherd University, just outside of Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And lived in Northern Virginia for a little bit, bounced around, and now I'm back in Montgomery County.
Awesome. So basically you grew up in Montgomery County before you went off to college in West Virginia, right?
Yeah.
How was it growing up in Moco? What were you into? What did you like?
So it's funny, right? I had a super, super easy life. My parents were successful. I'd never had to worry about where I was going to get my next meal from. I always had really nice clothes, really nice things. So I was super, super fortunate. So my life, was pretty amazing. My parents got divorced, and it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's how I met my stepdad and my stepmom. And my step parents are the coolest people in the world. So I'm so blessed. So I have so many more parents. Most people are lucky if they have one. They're blessed if they have two. And here I am with 4 people in my life that genuinely care about me and are, wanting me to succeed. And so, I've had them, my stepmom came into my life later, but I met my stepdad, I think it was 9 or 10 years old. So, I mean, he's just Papa to me. I don't ever really refer to it. If I'm hanging out with somebody and oh, who's this guy? I'm like, oh yeah, that's my dad, which is hilarious because I also have a great relationship with my biological dad. So it definitely gets confusing for a lot of people, but I'm super lucky on the parent front. And all sides of my family, they're all entrepreneurs. So when I decided to take the risk to become my own business, owner. And even today, I mean, I totally know that if I was to fail, I could always go move back home with mom or dad. Not that I would ever want to do that, but having that sense of security behind you is so relaxing when you're freaking out about, cash flow and doing projections and trying to figure out how you can grow the business, because you have to, spend tons of money in my field to digest more business. So yeah, I've been super lucky. Had lots of time in pools, lots of time on the water. So I had the ideal lifestyle that you would want to have as anyone could imagine in Montgomery County.
Growing up, you mentioned, I guess all parents were sort of entrepreneurial. Would you help out in the business? Would you be involved, or you would just see it more from a distance?
So you may know my mom. Her name's Orla O'Callahan. She's a pretty big realtor in the area. She's with Remax. She's awesome. And I think I was probably like 4 or 5 years old when I started selling houses. She would literally put like a basketball or a soccer ball or something in the trunk of her car, and we would go to a house in a neighborhood, and she would just be like, hey, look, I don't care if there's no child or there's no group of kids or whatever. She's like, but at some point in time, I'm going to give you a cue. You're going to come tug on my blouse and you're going to say, hey, mom, I'm going to go play with the neighbor's kids. And then you're just going to go outside. And if there's kids, play with them. If there's not, don't, right? Well, most of the times that I would go, there were kids, but sometimes there weren't actually kids to go play with. So I'd just go kick the soccer ball on my own. But I'd, walk up to her, tug on her blouse, be like, hey, mom, I want to go outside and play. And she was like, okay, cool. Like, go do that. And the parents would be shocked to be like, oh, you're going to let your child go play outside without supervision? Now, I'm 6'3", 240 pounds, and I was always a big kid. So like, she wasn't super that scared, but she'd be like, yes, this is a lovely neighborhood. It's super safe. And then, at the end of her showing the house, she'd come out and grab me and say, okay, cool, it's time to go. And most of the time I'd actually just go ring other doorbells and find out if they had kids and be like, hey, like, are there any kids here that want to play ball? And we would all just get, drug outside. But this is like before, video games, right? So I had to tell people that they don't really understand. It's funny, even this generation, I asked them like, hey, how do you hold a cell phone? And they go like this, right? Because they're holding their iPhone. As with us, we remember this type of phone,
Yeah.
And we had to sacrifice tiny robots to connect to the internet. You'd have the dial-up tone and all that stuff. So when I was younger, we were outside more. So it was a lot easier to literally walk through a neighborhood and find someone to play with.
I like that.
Yeah, that's when I started selling houses.
Especially at such a young age, Blair. You said you were, I think, 4 or 5. I could just imagine. I have 3 boys of my own, 3 little ones. Just going on the doorbell. I remember one of the reasons, not the main reason, that my oldest one sort of joined the Cub Scouts was to sell popcorn. Just to get them comfortable, just going up to strangers and, asking for the order, and whether ringing doorbells or just strangers at the mall. Just because nowadays, like you mentioned, with technology and kids just are all about the screen.
You're so disconnected.
Yeah.
I mean, and even as adults, one of the things that I wrestled with as an adult, I'm 31 now, is I had absolutely no idea how challenging it was to make friends as an adult. I never, if you had asked me like, hey, like young Blair, like, what do you think is going to happen when you're older? I was like, oh, like, I'd have all these friends and all this stuff. And like your high school friends and your childhood friends, like as you age and you grow, you sometimes grow apart. And I still have some great friends from, my childhood, but it's nowhere near the connection that, you crave as an adult. And it's, that was pretty crazy. And then you translate that into your employees who don't have the same social constructs that we did. So I have 2 employees that I'm grooming for management in the future of this company. And I actually sent them to BNI, the Business Networking International Group, because it just forces them to talk to people. It forces them to talk in front of people. It forces them to announce themselves, to explain themselves. And I have people who, would look at their shoes. We had to tape to their shoes, look up, so they'd constantly be looking down at their shoes and then looking up and looking down at their shoes and looking up. And then you send them to BNI for like a year, and then, you can send them anywhere to talk because they've learned those interpersonal skills that just our generation and the generations after us just do not have.
It's so true. When you're mentioning BNI, especially with what you do, which is mostly, I guess, B2B, because you're servicing, fleets of business vehicles, right? Maybe they'll get business from there. Maybe they won't. Who knows?
They typically don't. I think that the $800 a year that it is, and then the time that I have to pay them to go there, I think it's actually the best training dollar for dollar versus hiring a coach. And that's why I do it. If we get business, that's fantastic. We really haven't. We're in 2 different BNI groups. We have not gotten, and we haven't generated any new business from it. I had a lot of relationships with people who were in the group beforehand, and they were already my customers. And I track that. I track referrals like a hawk. But it's really just for the interpersonal skills because, you know, they just need to get there and get used to, you know, the referrals. And I gave a ton of business to my group. I think we gave like $500,000 at one point, and thank you for closed business last year before I left the group. So it wasn't that I wasn't giving to the group and we weren't receiving it. It was just my industry is so niche that it's challenging for those people to give. But I think that it's a fantastic organization for other people.
Yeah, I agree. I was in a similar group, not B&I, but it was, as you know, my business is also B2B, but I think I got one, which was great. But then you look at, you know, what you get, like the investment on an annual basis, because for my group, we would also pay for breakfast. But it's the relationship is great too. And like you said, you just get more comfortable with that communication and building that interpersonal skill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Crazy.
It's funny you mentioned as far as when we get older as an adults, and I think it's more of a male thing. I mean, I could be completely wrong as far as having friendships, because it is true. I have friends that I grew up with, which we're close, but we're not as close as we were growing up. But with my wife and her girlfriends, they meet and they have their significant other, and then that's how we sort of, the men sort of more communicate.
Yeah. I have my girlfriend, I haven't had that experience with so far where like her, you know, girlfriends, she actually has a ton of male friends and a lot of her friends are actually from church and, you know, they're all super nice. But she's, you know, it's funny, right? So like she lived in Smithsburg, Maryland, got a job at Children's National Hospital, then moved to Gaithersburg. And, you know, like her whole world's been turned upside down. COVID's around. So like people aren't interacting as much as they were. So it's actually been really challenging for her to like find her, you know, new group and all that stuff. I mean, she's doing fantastic now, but I remember when that first thing happened, I was like, how do we get, like, we can't go anywhere to go meet anybody. Everyone's so afraid to talk to anybody anyway. And, you know, it's like the texting and all the technology and social media, it's super tough now. Yeah.
So you graduate high school here in Montgomery County, and then you go to West Virginia for college. Do you know what you want to study, or what was your interest going into college there?
Yeah, so I went to Shepherd University. They gave me in-state tuition. That was one of the first things. The other thing was, at the time, my biological dad was sick, and I wanted to stay close enough where I could come home on the weekends, but also far enough away where if I didn't want to come home on the weekend, that was also totally okay. And it was great, you know, because I got to, you know, see my parents. I'm really close with all my family and spend time with them. When I went there, I actually wanted to do, you know, like get my degree in business, you know, business and marketing. And I had so much experience with my parents. And I walked into, I remember it was like business 101 marketing. And I sit down and the guy said something about marketing that was like related to sales. And I can't remember what it was, but I remember disagreeing with him so much that I walked out of the class. I went to the dean of the business school and I sat down with him and I said, you know, this was my experience. This is my experience growing up. This is where I think I want to go in my life. You know, I don't think that I'm going to get any value out of here. And the guy looks at me and he says, take the accounting courses as your electives, because you're going to need to know how to run your numbers and how to run your books. It's like everything else you could probably figure out. And he was like, yeah, don't do this. So then I changed my major to teaching, education, coaching, and officiating. I wanted to work with at-risk youth in the inner city. Then I worked with at-risk youth in the inner city, and I realized really quickly that there's absolutely no way that I could help these kids truly better themselves unless I could teach them either one, a tangible life skill that they can take with them that is a skilled trade, or two, have so much money because I won the lottery that I can make all of their foundational issues disappear overnight with financing. And I didn't win the lotto, even though I play. So I started Revitalization Auto, which Revit is the first 5 letters. So a lot of people think that Revit is like revving an engine. It just happens to be that because it's a play on words. But really what we're doing is we're trying to engage in the community, engage with kids and teach them. And I've hired kids who have had disabilities, who have been autistic, trained them, groomed them, found them other jobs. One of my guys right now came here, didn't graduate high school, doesn't have his diploma, doesn't have his GED, had no social interpersonal skills, would just like laugh at you and smile when you would be trying to reprimand them and or give them any sort of criticism or constructive information. And I just remember looking at him one day and just being like, are you smiling and laughing because you have no idea how to respond to what I'm saying, because no one has ever taken you seriously? Because when they start smiling and laughing at you, your teachers just think that you're joking and you don't care, so they leave, but you really do care. You just are trapped behind this facade of you, smiling and laughing. He's like, yes. I was like, okay, I think you can work here. And he went from like not knowing how to put a drill bit in a drill, and now he is starting to learn more about some of the advanced systems on cars, and he's turned into a fantastic employee. I probably have 15 of those stories that have gone the other way, where I try to groom them, they stay with me for 6 months, I pour all this money into them, I get nothing in return. But I hope that it just kind of like elevates them a little bit and they can take what they learned to the next job. But sometimes you get lucky, you get your unicorn, and it all works out. And that's really where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to help people, and I knew I needed to help them by giving them a skill that they could take anywhere in their life. Because now if he works anywhere, if he moves anywhere, he's always going to have those mechanic skills.
And that's the reason you started Revit, Otto.
That's the reason we started, yeah.
Did you start after college, after graduation, or how was that timeline?
So I was in my senior year and I was working for a company called Sustainable Solutions, natural resource land management company. They do prescribed fires, they do invasive species removal, they will do, large scale projects. They try to do it as naturally as possible without disturbing the earth and helping the earth heal itself. And they're fantastic people. And the guy who ran it, his name is James Tremuzzi, fantastic person. You should totally talk to him, actually. He'd be awesome for a podcast here. I was his resource manager as I was graduating, and he's just said to me, he's like, you should just do what you do for me for other businesses. And then I said, cool, I'll do that. So I started my company while I was in my senior year of college. It was actually called Blair's Car Care. I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a sign somewhere right here. It's actually a t-shirt. It's the last t-shirt I have of my first company, Blair's Car Care. And it was a concierge service for just car people. And then I had a 55-piece Craftsman tool set, and I had my Kia Sportage, and my parents gave me the Kia Sportage. It was awesome. It was like 2005, the year that Kia started making really high quality stuff, and had like touchscreen DVD players. It was really, really cool. And I remember my first job was for a woman whose name is Rose, and it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee with a 4-liter inline 6 or straight 6, and I needed to change the serpentine belt. And anyone who's a mechanic knows you can't do that with a 55-piece Craftsman tool set, because the serpentine belt is right up against the fan clutch, and you need to have a special tool that's literally just a flat bar with a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch, drive on it. And then you can take everything apart. So I remember I go to do the job, not knowing how to do the job. YouTube's not really a big thing, right? We're talking like this is, 2012 probably that I'm doing this job, 2012, 2013. And so there was no YouTube video on how to do this. So I just had to like teach myself how to do this job. And never had any formal training, just kind of like bought cars, tried to fix them, took them apart, never put them back together type of thing. And then got paid the money to do the job, went to the store, gave them my driver's license because I didn't have a credit card yet, to borrow a tool to go change a serpentine belt. Then when I came back with the money, I paid for the part, paid for the tool, bought the tool, and then that's how I amassed it. And over the last 10 years, now I have, I think we just did inventory. It's like $1 million in tools, trucks, and equipment. So we've like really scaled from there.
Wow. Blair, I'm curious. So you decided to go into this business with not much auto mechanic experience at all, from what you're telling me. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And you're
Yeah.
like, hey, why? I'm curious. First of all, why this?
Hmm.
And after that experience, some people are like, well, I don't want to get my hands dirty, or I don't like this about the industry or that. And maybe let me look at other things. So first of all, why this, and why, I guess, continue that route?
Yeah, I would say I loved cars. I was just like addicted to cars.
Okay.
And I just wanted to know everything there was to know about cars. And I had a lot of friends that were like getting addicted to drugs and getting addicted to drinking and just failing in life. And
Hmm.
I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, man, I was like, I have no money for anything but my car, because it was like about a Mustang. I need tires, I need brakes, I want a supercharger, I want a turbo, I want a fuel
Sure.
injection. And I went through the whole list, and I had no money for anything else. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a healthy addiction. I'll stick with this. And then I don't know. I think it was really when I realized, once I learned how the automotive industry works on the service side, and I figured out how much of a scam it was, I was like, I'm going to revolutionize auto repair. So at my company, everyone's salaried. There's no commission. Um, I buy all the tools, I buy all the equipment. My employees just have to show up. They take their full paycheck home. They don't have to pay the tool guy that comes around. They know that their paycheck's going to be the same. And we just kind of change the script, and that's why I think I've stuck with it, is that I'm trying to change the way the automotive industry services vehicles, because it is, well, you dive into it and it is a very, very dark and scary place of stealing people's money.
I like how it all started too, as far as your interest in just, I guess, with your Mustang or with your cars, and doing things to it, and then from there you went further, deeper into it. It's funny you mentioned that, because I have a younger brother who's all about his car and these rims during this time of the season. Then you have
Mhm.
to switch it out, and the tires, I meant, not the rims. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he has these rims right here. Then he also flips rims, and then the suspension and lowering it and all this other
Hmm.
stuff. And I'm like, man, why don't you? And he goes to all these shows. He was just up in New Jersey, New York a couple weekends ago with his car,
Yeah.
because his car was able to come and get into the show. I'm like, why don't you? And he's in tech, he's in IT. I'm
Okay.
like, why don't you get into this? Like, there has to be
Hmm.
some niche or something you can start selling. And he was like, yeah, but it's just like a hobby. I'm like, hey,
Hmm.
okay, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, right? This really was a hobby for me that turned into a business. And the stuff that I really love doing in the car world, I don't actually do on a daily basis. I really do what a lot of people think is boring, but I genuinely love figuring out the puzzle pieces of someone's company and how to make their fleet more efficient and helping them really scale and grow their company. And it's funny, I talk to people about that. I tell them, we have a program. It's a partnership program. So any new client that wants to work with us, we tell them, hey, look, there's a monthly fee per vehicle to be a partner with us. And some people absolutely get it right away and they sign up. Other people sign up and they're like a little concerned about it. And then something happens in their life where either like they need a vehicle, or their car or their truck breaks down, or they need an amazing accountant, or they need somebody. And we reach out into our network and we're like, hey, we have a partner that we work with that's in this industry that needs this type of person. And then our vendors will be like, oh yeah, like we could definitely help them out. If they're a referral from Blair, then like they're probably a good person. And we've been able to do some really great things. And the other thing that I do is I represent the business owner. So it's like, I mean, I'm now starting to film and document some of these testimonials from people. But just the other day we worked with J.D. Richards Power Systems. They're doing all the electric inside the Amazon towers in Arlington, and the HQ too. And we took one of their trucks to the dealership, and the dealership was like, oh, this is a $6,000. It's going to be a $6,000 repair for you. And I looked at the quote and said, no, this is all covered under factory warranty. And the guy at the service advisor, no, it's not covered. I said, okay, cool. So I just go onto the Ford website. I download the PDF that has all the warranty documentation from a 2018 to 2019 Ford F650, F750. And I just go line by line, and I'm just highlighting every single piece of like what he's trying to replace and why it's covered under warranty. And then we get an email back. He says, okay, all those things are covered. Please see my, revised email for like $1,500. And I said, yeah, that's a reasonable price for the rest of those things. So that's like the power that we give clients, is that, we have 7 mechanics and we are on site, and we also have all these other systems and protocols that we help you put into place to better manage your fleet. And once your fleet is more efficiently run, then your business can do exponential things. I mean, we ask these people that we have like a very simple question to determine if we're their client, if they're a client for us or not. Do you currently take your vehicle to a brick and mortar repair shop? Yes or no? How much are you paying your employees per day? How many employees are in a vehicle? How long does it take for your vehicle to return to production after it's gone in for a service? And, I ask every business owner, well, how long does it take for you to get an oil change? They're like, oh, well, it takes an hour. I'm like, okay. So you're telling me that it takes your guy 1 hour from the moment that he leaves a productive job site to then go to the place to go get an oil change and then come back? And they're like, yeah, that takes about an hour. I said, okay. I said, why don't we call one of your techs and ask them? They're like, oh, like maybe 3 hours. Or they say, oh, well, they take their vehicles home with them, so they do it on their own time. And I said, they do not do it on their own time. I've never had that, be a thing, because no one wants to do their own oil changes and stuff. And so I said, okay, cool. So you get your oil change, and then they find that you need brake pads and rotors. Do they do it right then and there, or do you have to schedule another appointment? So they're like, no, I got to schedule another appointment. I said, and how often does this happen? They're like, maybe twice a year. I'm like, okay, cool. So we've just established that we've lost 16 hours of productivity from servicing your vehicle. How much does one of your vehicles make in a day? What is the revenue of that vehicle per day? And you can ask anybody. Most people in the services trades make a minimum of $1,000 a day per unit. If they're not doing that, it doesn't make sense for them to be in business. So your plumbers, your electricians, all those guys are revenuing over $1,000 a day. And I said, okay, you just lost $2,000 in revenue, not including the fact that you have the cost of the equipment, the insurance, the payments, the gas to drive there, and your employees. So not only did you lose $2,000, but now you have to pay your employees, and you still have to pay the shop. Would you like to recapture that lost revenue? And at the end of that conversation, they either say yes or no. If they say yes, I explain to them how we can do it. And what we do is we have a system, we have a plan where you pay us a monthly fee, and we cover 100% of your basic maintenance. We do 100% of all your maintenance on your job sites. And we can do about 70% of all other related repairs on the job site. If there's something that we can't do, what we will do is we will find the best repair facility for you, and we'll take care of the whole thing. So all you have to do as an owner is pick up the phone and say, hey, I think my engine just blew up, and we take care of everything else. But we're also super proactive. So in our partnership program, we come every 3 months, we see your vehicle, no matter what. Even if nothing's going wrong with your car, even if it's been parked, every 3 months we come, we do a bumper to bumper inspection. We're as proactive as possible because, there's not just the cost of the downtime. There's a cost of not completing the project, right? Then you have to reschedule everything. And then if you are in some of these trades that are so overtaxed and your employees are so hard to get, your morale decreases incredibly so when you have bad equipment. And a lot of people don't think about this as they're scaling and growing their business. But once they realize how expensive their maintenance, really costs them, then they call us immediately, and we're super cheap because, we may say that it might cost you somewhere around $1,700 to $2,000 a year to be a part of our partnership program. And you might say, whoa, man, that's expensive when I can go to Jiffy Lube for $90. And I said, well, 5 minutes ago, we just established that you're losing $2,000 in revenue a year at a minimum on just getting your vehicle serviced, not including tires, not including any accidental stuff, not including when the check engine light comes on, not including when some guy hits the mirror and now it's got to go to the body shop, like all those things we can do on site. And then when you break it down, we're also doing your oil changes, your air filters, your wiper blades, all that stuff you're getting. And it really saves you a ton of money. So the companies that understand that, they're healthy businesses that know their numbers, and then they want to work with us. And it's fantastic for us because my guys are salaried. I have residual income, so I know how much I can pay them, how busy we're going to be. And my guys, they don't try to upsell you anything because it doesn't matter. Their pay is not dependent upon how many issues do you have in your car. In fact, their bonus structure is based off of how many lack of comebacks they get. So if someone goes out and let's say that they go, fix a vehicle and they did something wrong and I have to go and check it. If I determine that they did something that was negligent, that comes out of their bonus pay. So they're like, oh no, they'll take the extra time. And I don't care if it takes them 2 hours longer than it should, right? I care that the job is done correctly and to the best of anyone's ability and to a standard that's high enough that it's never going to fail. And then, we just continue to grow from there. So that's kind of like where we're at now, how we evolved from small 55-piece Craftsman toolset in a Kia Sportage to here. It's just that type of mentality. And we hire all of our people based on our core values, our mission and vision statement. Like I read all of that to them before I hire them to make sure that that's reflective of who they are.
This is so different compared to how other people are doing it in your industry. It's almost the opposite. What made you decide to do it this way?
So I don't have a great reason for what, motivated for me to do it just this way, other than it's just the right thing to do. I mean, I truly believe that if you do something well and you do it right and you do it for the best reasons, then it's going to succeed. And it hasn't really guided me anywhere wrong yet. I definitely think I've been taken advantage of, and my kindness has definitely been taken advantage of. But that doesn't demotivate me to keep doing it. It just makes me think, who can I do it for that's going to make the biggest impact? And that's the difference that it's made for me. So
was there any pivotal moment? You said going 9 years, 10 years next year, any pivotal moment during that 9-10 year history that you said you started with the Jeep Grand Cherokee, I think was the first one.
That was the first job I ever worked on. Yeah. Was that.
To where you are today, it's almost the opposite of what you're doing now. Was there something in that timeline, that 9-10 years, that you decided to change the business? I don't know if it was the first year or as far as pivotal moments that just boom.
Yeah, I joined this group with this guy. I joined a couple of CEO groups. One of them is called CXP. It's a Christian organization. For any of you people looking for something like that, it's fantastic. My girlfriend's super religious. I was born, raised Catholic and Jewish, so I'm a cashew. I'm all messed up, right? And I was just, my girlfriend really wanted me to connect back to God in our relationship. That was important to her. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. But there's this business organization that, leads their company based on biblical principles. And I've read Henry Ford and Lee Iacocca's, biographies, and they talk about how the Bible was the best business book they ever read. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go do this. And then I went there, and all the things that I've been doing naturally, just trying to, better the lives of my employees, that's called Kingdom Impact. And so it all slid together for me. And I met this guy, David Kuzma, and I hired him to actually kind of be like a consultant. He's an awesome guy. I'll introduce you to him as well. And he said something to me one day that like totally changed my life. He's like, you're not in the automotive repair business. And I said, what are you talking about? I literally am. He goes, no. He says, you're in the revenue generating business. You help other companies generate more revenue by fixing their vehicles and their equipment. And that was kind of like the, moment for me where I was like, okay, no more residential clients, no more like custom builds for TV shows, no more TV shows, no more of this. And I just like hyper focused in the commercial aspect of just working with business to business. And it was hard. I mean, I lost all my employees because they were like, we came here because you're on TV. We came here because we build cool hot rods. We came here because we do all this super interesting stuff. And now you're telling me that you don't want to do that. And I was like, nope, we're going in a different direction. And, we finally, we read the book Traction. We read the book EOS. We made all of our documentation. We have all our protocols. So 2 months ago, we start our first state of the company address. And two of my guys, like right away, were just like, I could just tell they weren't going to jump on board with the growth of the company. And just this past week, had to let them go. But they're fantastic guys.
Sure.
They're really, really good people. It's just they don't jibe with what we're trying to do now, and that's okay. That's something that I used to think was like terrible, but when you share your vision correctly for your company, and you can give someone a piece of paper that outlines everything that you're trying to do, you can get everybody to row in the same direction. And when you have the right team, even if it's smaller, rowing in the same direction, you're way more productive, because you don't have to spend all your energy pouring into the employee who doesn't get it yet. And you got to give them that time to adjust. You got to make sure the right person, right job, right person, wrong job, or wrong person, wrong job. And once you realize that, you have to, cut ties with them. But anyone that I've ever, I let go or fired, I've tried to do it as, greatly as possible. Like the two guys I'm talking about, I've contacted other shops and said, this is a great person who will fit in with your program. If you want to hire him, I'll give you his contact information. And later today, I'm going to call them and let them know, hey, I have, lined up these potential jobs for you to step right on into. I want them to succeed. It's just, I can't have them at this company at this time, but I hope later down the road that when we've become more established, or we've, figured out all the things we need to figure out, they don't want to help us figure out, that they want to come back. And if they don't come back, I just want them to be very successful and tell me, I genuinely want them to come and tell me, hey man, I'm doing great. And I'm doing better than I ever thought I could. That's what I want them to tell me. And I'd be really disappointed in both of them if that's not what happened in 5 years when I reach back out to them.
Blair, was it that Christian business group or that consultant coach that you hired to sort of help solidify the values and everything else?
So the both of them were integral, right? But it's really the people you surround yourself with. I am arguably the least successful, least intelligent, least hardest working. I am like the bottom of the totem pole of the people that I spend a majority of my time with. One of my super close friends runs a company that's probably 3 times my size, and he has energy that I wish I could, have as well to match his is phenomenal. And the way that he runs his business, the poise he has, the calm that he has, amazing. My other great friend is a young, businessman who's crushing it, making, well into the 6 figures, running a whole pharmaceutical division, and just absolutely brilliant. I have these people in my life who are much further than me. And that came from a quote from my dad. When I was a little kid, where my parents were going through divorce, there's all this chaos. And my dad looked at me one day and he said, I got to tell you, son, both your parents are messed up. That's what he said. Right. And he's like, there are characteristics about your mother, and there are characteristics about me that are better than anyone else that you will meet. He said, there's also characteristics about both of us that are really bad, but you have the power to pick the very best characteristics of each parent that you have, of everyone in your life, and add them to yourself. And then he put me in therapy after he said that. But that was amazing, because I met my stepdad, and my stepdad is an angel from heaven. I don't know where he came from, but thank you. You know what I mean? And he would do this thing where when he was upset with you, he would come to your room, or he would come to wherever you were, and he would sit down, and he would make sure that like his eye line was a little bit below yours, because he's a big man. He's 6'2", big giant Italian Russian guy, and he would just talk to you with a smile on his face, with like a really difficult task to talk about, and just made this like warm and inviting space to discuss issues. And I was like, man, I want, that was a painful conversation that didn't hurt so bad. I want to be like that. And now all my employees know, when they come in, if they have a bad thing occurring in their life, that I will talk with them. Or if I have an issue with them, I go to their space. I don't, hey, come into the office, come into the trailer. No, none of that. If I have to talk about something serious or bad, I make sure I go talk to them. And whatever position I'm in, I like think about it. If it's in the, we have sea containers. If I have to have a difficult conversation with them in a sea container, I will go to the back of the container so that they are facing towards the door. So if they feel that they need to turn around and walk away, they can. I make sure that my eye line's lower than theirs. So if I'm taller than them, I'll sit down. And I just talk, and I try to smile and just say, hey, I have a really difficult thing to talk about with you, and let's get into it. I actually don't ever start a conversation like that, because you're setting yourself up for failure when you say that. I just talk about the issue calmly and let them and listen a lot. And that's something my stepdad did. And my mom has crazy work ethic, and I adopted that from her. And my dad's really good at delegating, so I took that from him. And I just meet these people and I see how they run their business. And then they tell me things like, don't do this. I did this. It did not work. And I believe them and I try it, I just surround myself with people who are really successful. And that's been, I think, the biggest trade for me, because you just have so many similarities when you break into that mold.
I agree completely. I mean, your friends matter. Who you hang out with matters.
Oh yeah.
If someone listening to this, Blair, and maybe they don't have the good group of friends, like, I don't know how you found your friends you mentioning here that are other business people and entrepreneurs, but how can they go about just associating or getting near to people that would sort of level you up in life and in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are organizations out there that have the core values that you're looking for. And that's what I would start doing. I would start looking at places.
Is that how you found your friends?
That is, yeah. So my really close friend, Josh, I met him from another close friend. And he was just like, hey, I think you two need to connect. So I said, great. And that's kind of how that happens. When you meet someone who's really great, when I meet people who are really great, I'm like, do you have a job? And they're like, yeah, I do. I'm like, do you want a new job? Because I know someone I need to connect you with. I guess the best thing to say is this, right? Grade your friends, right? A, B, C, D, and E. And your A-less friends, those are the ones that, if you made it to $10 million or you were in debt $10 million, that they would love and treat you the same way. And you might have 2 or 3 of those in your entire lifetime. If you are lucky, you'll have that. But to test if you have the right people around you is the better way to do this. And what I have found personally is find a group or an organization that has the people that you want to aspire to be. And when you listen to people and they give you advice, look at how their life is and see if that lifestyle is how you want to live. Because I have met people that are very successful, but the way they live their life is not the way I want to live my life. I don't want to go to Vegas. I don't want to do drugs. I don't want to go gambling, but they have a beautiful home and the Ferrari, and I want that. And then I find other people who have the Ferrari and the beautiful home, and they spend their money not in Vegas but on vacation. And then I ask them, like, hey, how did you establish this? So I think if I was to make like a hierarchy of things, I would say find organizations that you believe reflect the values that you want to adopt in your life. Spend time with people that are more successful than you. If you're the most successful person in your room, try to find someone else who's more successful. And just understand that, it's tough, right? Like, I hear this term all the time of, well, someone's, you see someone's true colors when their back's up against the wall, right? I don't actually like that. I think that it's important to recognize what someone's going to do when they're panicking, but I don't hold them entirely accountable to when they're in their mode of panic. I on the racetrack, a driver who's in panic might crash the car, or they might fixate on something and they'll crash the car. And that doesn't mean they're a bad driver. They just had a moment of weakness. You know, if someone's back is against the wall, you just know that they don't have the skills or the tools to handle that situation. They're just lashing out. It's like if you've ever been a lifeguard, you try to save somebody. They talk to you about when someone is drowning, they will try to drown you, even though you're trying to save them. And it's not because they're bad people, they're just panicking. So, you know, just recognize when people get into a mode of panic, you know, I've seen relationships that have disappeared in my life because I thought, oh, well, they were down and they were out and they did me dirty. And it's like, no, this guy was trying to feed his child and he owed me money, but he decided not to pay me because he needed to feed his child. And I was lucky enough to have learned that lesson prior. So when that happened, I called him, I said, look, I said, I understand you're in a bind financially. Don't ever do that to me again. If you cannot pay me back, tell me. And now when people ask me for money, if it's a friend and I loan them money and they never talk to me again, I'm just like, great, that was the cheapest $500 in my life, because now I know this, you know, isn't what it is. But if I loan someone $2,500 and they can't pay me back, but they still provide value for me in my life and in my friendship, I just pretend that if I loan you money, I'm never getting it back. If I get it back, that's great. And if you can't pay me back because you're terrible with your money, some people are great people that just have terrible money skills, and you can figure out how to make the money back from them in other ways. But I guess, you know, a long-winded answer to bring it down shortly: find an organization that matches the values that you want to have in your life. Try to elevate your friend group as much as possible. Find a mentor, find an older person who's been there, done that, listen to them. Everybody has an opinion, understand everyone has an opinion, but look at their lifestyle and see if that applies to the way that you want to live. And then think about that. You know, people can tell you in cars, hey, I want to make 1,000 horsepower. Well, you can go ask 3 different builders. Someone will say a turbo, someone will say supercharger, someone will say all naturally with a motor, and someone will say with nitrous. And they'll all make 1,000 horsepower, and they'll all be within a tenth of a second of each other in the quarter mile. But the way they get there is totally different. So you just got to figure out what fits for you. And if you're struggling and you don't have any way to get help, there are organizations out there that will help you. You just have to ask. I can't tell you, there's a statistic out there somewhere of like $10 million in grant money for kids going to college does not get allocated because no one applies. And you would be amazed when you start asking the universe, you know, for something to help you, or you start, you know, willing things into existence. It really helps.
Yeah, that's so true. I agree. What would you say drives and motivates you?
I have this dream that Revit is a national company, and I have community centers that are housing, schooling, and auto repair. And we have government contracts, and we take kids out of poverty and we teach them a skill, and they learn this skill and they either stay with our company or we find them a different job. And instead of them having to pay $60,000 to go to a trade school, they can work with us to grow. And I think partly somewhere in there, that's like my life's mission. I think, you know, my purpose in life is to help people. And that's why I still work so hard. That's why I do it, is because I think that one day I'm going to be able to leave a legacy for someone else. And it doesn't even have to be my name. I mean, if Lyft, the Uber competitor, called me and said, hey, we want to buy your company, which we've had a conversation before, because they're starting their own mobile service division, I would say, yeah, absolutely. But like, we have to also make sure that this is the mission of the purchase, is that we're going to help people. I mean, our vision statement is that, you know, I want everyone who comes in contact with us professionally or personally to have Revit make a positive influence in their life. You know, my mission is to become America's best fleet service company for partnering with businesses. That's what I want to do. I want every business to use Revit Auto for their fleet service providing company. And I want to help kids in the process, and adults. I mean, anybody who, you know, really needs a second chance or needs to build that foundation. I want, you know, this to be that. And I think we can get there.
Blair, I love that vision and mission. It's amazing. I mean, and if there's anything I can do to help with anything, please let me know. I think it's pretty awesome. But if you do sell one day, I don't know if that's even something you may even consider. do you see that company that's going to acquire you continue with that vision?
You know, I don't think that, no, I don't. A businesses operate to make money. And what I'm doing is very expensive and it really eats at the bottom line. So I don't think that is something that would be continued if I was to be acquired. So the acquisition would have to be in such a way that I could then help other people. I've also thought about when the technology side of my company takes off, if the mobile mechanic side is still doing well and growing organically, then I would probably make the company employee owned. And then I would focus on the technology side because the profits from there would more than sustain my lifestyle. And then I could, literally have the employees own a portion of the company so that they would have a vested interest in its continued success. And I think that's probably going to be the way that it actually goes, is that it becomes an employee-owned, employee-run company, as opposed to selling to, a larger organization that would just cannibalize their systems and then remove our culture, because culture is super important to me.
What's the technology side of the business?
So we have a mobile app that we've been building for about 2 years now that is going to be a very powerful tool for business owners that have a large scale fleet. If you're a landscape company, you could download the app today, right now. You could download the app. It's called Downtime Terminator. You could set up your divisions, plow fleet, lawn, land maintenance, earth moving crew, whatever divisions you have in your company, division 1, 2, 3. You can enter in all the equipment, all the data, everything that you need that is tied to that team. And then you can create daily, quarterly, monthly inspection reports, reminders for insurance renewals, and any sort of thing that you want it to do. It's very customizable. It will allow you to do in this app. It'll allow you to see how much money, how many miles you've driven, how much money you spent on your fleet, how much of your equipment is broken, how many tickets are open. The mechanic can use it to more easily communicate. There's lots of landscapers that have their own in-house mechanic, and the mechanic comes in the morning early and leaves in the afternoon before the crew gets back. And there'll be a lawnmower sitting outside and there's no information about it. So the mechanic's like, well, what's wrong with the lawnmower? So then he's got to try to start it. Oh, well, the battery's dead. So he puts a battery in it. He starts it up. It runs fine. He thinks everything's cool. He's like, okay, cool. It was just a dead battery. But really the stator or the alternator failed and the battery's going to die in a couple minutes, of running longer. But he doesn't know that because there's no communication. So we have like a form that you fill it on your app. You click it, you take a video, photo, Spanish, English, whatever you want it to be in for you. Take a photo, take a video, fill out a short description, hit submit. It's a ticket's created, gets sent to the fleet manager. That goes to the mechanic fills it out, gets reported back to the original operator, but hey, this machine's been fixed. And then the owner can look and say like, wow, my guy spent 4 hours, spent, this much money, and he completed this. And then you can start to see trends, right? Because data is important. So then you see, man, my X-Mark 44-inch mower, I don't know if that exists, that's just something I said, is like costing me a lot of money across my entire business. Okay. And then at the end of the year, when we do an audit, I'll come sit down with the guy and say, hey, look, I noticed that like all of these types of trucks are blowing tires on this crew. Is this vehicle going into DC? Is this a bad training issue? Do we need to be buying new cab over trucks for better turn radius in DC? Like, where are these vehicles going that's causing these issues? And that's kind of like the tech side of what that's going into. There's also a training library, so you can upload videos on how to train your team. There's a process that we even teach people how to do that. So you could say, hey, if you want to come in here and look at this, come in here and mow this property, here's a video of the property. This is what we mow. This is what we look for. All of those things you can do within the app. So it's in its infancy, but we've tested it with a couple of companies. It has some bugs that I'm working out. I'm a perfectionist. So everyone tells me it needs to be like, published and put out there for more people to use. But every day I do something, I'm like, I need a little bit more. But it's a very powerful tool for people who are willing to invest the time into trying to capture that data.
So it's not out there and it's not live yet.
So you can download it on the iPhone App Store. It's only on Apple. We'll be releasing later next year the Android version and the web-based version as well.
Okay.
And then at that point, hopefully we'll have GPS tracking included.
You mentioned large fleet and vehicles. So typically a company, let's say, utilizing this app is going to have about how many you think would be best?
So any of our clients, if they have one vehicle or they have 275 vehicles, just one of my clients has 275, they can use the app if they want. And it can be the way that we communicate. It can be the way that they have the information they need on their vehicle. But it's really more beneficial for larger scale companies that need to have uniformity. It's fantastic for smaller companies that don't really have someone that's really a fleet, like a small business owner that is wearing all the hats and doesn't have a fleet manager or fleet coordinator yet. That's great for them. A lot of companies will use their secretary to manage everything, which is very challenging. It's a fantastic tool for them. Once we get the web-based version done, that's when we'll really start pushing, trying to get people to download it and use it. But for right now, it's really just a fantastic tool for us, for our fleet partners, because it allows for us to get, somebody had a tire pop. Here's a perfect example. Artisan Movers had a tire pop in Northern Virginia. I got a phone call. Hey, tire popped in Northern Virginia. I'm like, oh, okay. Then my phone, ding, ding, Downtime Terminator pops up. Pop tire, truck 18. Well, there's a GPS geotag for every report that we get. So I click on it and they're in Hyattsville. But the owner of the company told me that they're in Northern Virginia, gave me an address and everything. So I called him back and said, hey man, the guy just submitted a repair request for the tire. We have a wheel and tire ready to go. We're going to send someone out to go do that. But they said they're in Hyattsville, that they're not in Northern Virginia. Can you double check for me? So he checks the schedule. He goes, they're supposed to be in Virginia, but the jobs got switched for the two guys for the trucks. So something happened in his system, but my system was able to efficiently capture that, because we would have gone to the job site and been like, the tires are fine. What are you talking about? And then he would have had 3 movers in a truck sitting. So we were able to, capture that. And that's kind of the power of the technology side of it, is that we get data right from the source, no secondhand, information there.
I love that. How many people are on your team? Because obviously for this is an emergency call. So you have to have a tech ready, available, I guess, 24/7. I don't know, to go out there and work on a fleet, on a vehicle, right?
Yeah. So we have 9 employees. We typically keep the schedule as consistent as possible, and we do have pockets, specifically planned for emergency services. Okay. So there's typically always a guy who's acting as a helper for a day that doesn't need to be a helper, but we always keep him around in case we get that phone call, hey, I have an emergency, and then we go kind of take care of that. Sometimes in business that's not great, because sometimes we'll leave too much time open and we lose productivity, but I'm starting to figure out where that, how can we have people being efficient with their time, but also be available to help. And what we found is that roadside emergency services is not what we're great for. But if there is an emergency service at a job site, we're fantastic with that. And that's really where we make the determination to tell somebody, hey, you just need a tow truck and you need to get a loaner vehicle, versus your guy, broke down on a job site, the van's going to be there all week, because we need to keep the equipment on site at the location. Getting the technician to the job site is easy, but getting the technician to the job site with the tools he needs is challenging. So if a vehicle breaks down on a job site, we tell them, leave it on the job site. We'll come diagnose it. Within 24 hours, someone will be out there to diagnose it, and then we'll repair it as quickly as possible. And we have enough of a client base now where that's pretty common occurrence. Yeah.
That's good. Blair, what would you say to someone if they come to you and say, Blair, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to have my own business. Maybe they have an idea what industry or field to go into, maybe products, service, who knows? What are a few things you would recommend this person to start thinking and doing before moving forward?
If I had a time machine and I could go back in time, this is what I would tell myself. I would say, go get a normal 9-to-5 job and try to find a job that is as close to your dream business that you want to operate, and go work in that company and ask a million questions. And then on your off time, work on your own company, because you need to have your stable paycheck. You need to be constantly planning for the future. And when you start your business, you're going to need to have some liquidity to start your business. I was fortunate that I was in college when I started my company. My parents gave me a car, so I didn't have any college debt. I was super lucky. I had a vehicle. I sold the vehicle to buy, more tools and a proper vehicle. So a lot of people don't have that opportunity, which is why I try to give, back so much to those people who don't have that, is because I feel, really blessed. So go get a job, go get a 9-to-5 in the field that you want to start your company in. And one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to get promoted so quickly in that business that they will ask you to become a partner, or you will learn enough about how they're running their business inefficiently that you can then add to your war chest of knowledge to make your business more competitive in that market space. And the most important thing that you realize is that, and I have people tell this to me all the time, man, I put in 40 hours a week and I am too tired to keep going. It's like, okay, you can't run your own small business. I'm not saying that you won't ever be successful. You just know that you can't put in that time. And I think that it's important.
They don't want to. They don't want to. And that's fine. I used to have this conversation with people all the time. I used to be so proud to say I worked 100 hours in a week. I remember this saying, I just did 100 hours this week, man. I'm a beast. Look at me. And now I'm like, I want to say that I worked 30 hours and I got all this accomplished. And that's what I'm working towards. I'm still in that 70-hour work week. But that's where I think, true success comes from, is optimizing, systemizing protocols, and then you can work less. And then when you work less, you can focus on other more important things. But I would say, if you were like, man, I want to be an entrepreneur, figure out what it is that you want to do, what business you want to start, go work for someone else, learn all the mistakes that they've made, talk to them, be inquisitive, save your money, and then start your side hustle. And when your side hustle can replace your main income, that's when you go full time. But do not start your business on a loan. Do not try to grow your business on a massive loan unless there's like actual tangible property that you're buying. I see too many of my friends taking loans to, make payroll. And if that's what's happening, that's not good. Not saying you can't turn that around. But that's really what I would say would be the best advice that I could give you, is go work for someone else, figure out what they do that's well, figure out what they don't do well, make systems, learn to duplicate yourself, simplify everything. When I started my business, I tried to do everything. I wish I just started out just doing brakes and tires and oil changes. Simple. Perfect it. Perfect your craft, and then take the next one, because you'll build the foundation. And if you're a perfectionist and you're doing a really good job, then you will have the resources and the foundation to support that growth. But if you don't do it that way, you'll never get off the ground. That's true. Great advice. You were just mentioning your team's about 9 people. I'm sure not all 9 of them, are they all techs, or how does that look as far as?
So one operations manager, one parts professional. The rest of them are technicians.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So the parts person is responsible for putting all the orders together for the next day. And then my operations manager, she does like 7 jobs in one. I honestly don't think I would be in business if she didn't exist. And I got super lucky with her. She was just like a gem. And she was like, I want to run this company. When this company is a national company, she's like, I want to be the COO. She's like, I want to be the boss. She's like, will you let me do that? I said, yeah, absolutely. So that's what's going to happen. She is the boss, actually. That's who you emailed with.
Oh, that's okay.
That is Kai. She is the boss. So I explain that to people when I meet them. Say, look, I'm the owner. She's the boss. And
how'd you find Kai?
So when I was doing the TV show, her cousin worked for me, and she said, hey, I have this cousin of mine who is a great person, really good, hardworking employee, who's not in a great situation with her current work environment. And, I met Kai, and she was like, sounds crazy, but I'd like to work from home. And I said, no, this is actually great, because I'm trying to build my company different. So I would like it to be where we don't have a central office where people come into. I was like, yeah, I'd love it if you could work from home. So when COVID hit and everyone was trying to figure out how to like strategize working from home, we were like 3 years running her working from home. And it's great. So our systems are so good that Kai is the boss of the company, does everything schedule wise, parts ordering, all that stuff. And she has help from Chris, but like she still does everything. And she can do it all from home on her one laptop. So that's how efficient our company is getting, is that one woman, one laptop, one cell phone can run, $1 million, gross revenue plus business a year. And that's the power of Revit. That's why we're really going to explode, is because we can replicate that over and over and over again.
And you didn't have that overhead of a space, especially when COVID hit.
Yeah, I did not. My overhead is just, I have 2 loans, one from my parents, one from a bank, to basically that I pay back every single month. And everything else is just like, cars, insurance, gas, labor. So our per person, per tech overhead is very low in comparison to other companies. Yeah.
You were mentioning just now, Blair, how you don't have your home base, and you did that specifically. What was the reason behind it?
Yeah, that was for the office. So we have what we call our support center, and the Revit support center. And you'll have to come out here one time. I can give you a tour. But I didn't want to have anyone in the office, because I work here, and this is also my home and my office, and I get questions constantly. So I intentionally wanted to separate the people who make the decisions and the people who set the schedule from the people who are in the schedule. Okay. Because they just come up to you and they ask you nonsensical questions about anything that comes to their mind, because, oh, well, I can just pop in and ask them a question. Then you have that happen to you 8 more times from 8 different guys a day, and it's impossible to run your business. So I was like, she needs to be far away from distractions. And that's actually been super beneficial.
That's great. You do such an amazing job with being online digitally. Is that you in-house? Is that a third party? Whether it's YouTube channel, everything. How do you do all this?
So in the beginning, it was all me. And then I had a full-time video editor for a little bit. And then I got rid of that. But we just did so much work up front that everything's scheduled out. So like in December of 2021, all of the videos and content for 2022 were finished. So I haven't made a new video in 9 months.
Wow.
This is all just backlog content that's coming out.
And you're putting a video out typically, do you have a plan or
once
schedule?
A week, Fix It Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll probably start filming again here soon, because I think, we're getting closer to not having content. But I really just put that content out there to just help people save money on their own vehicle repair, because I know how expensive it is. But I have not put a lot of effort into it recently, because I'm trying to figure out where my efforts really need to be focused. And I think it is now I'm going to probably take a hold for a year on making new content for the general public. And I'm going to focus on making content specific for business owners to gain benefit. And, I'm going to make content about how does somebody calculate their downtime? What does it really cost them to get their vehicle serviced? What type of vehicle should they buy? What are they looking for? What type of business are they operating? I can't tell you how many vehicles I go through and I do a fleet consultation for, and they're running equipment that I, would say they should never run. We're talking to Valley Dry Waterproofing in Odenton, Maryland. They run F-250s, F-350s, Nissan NB 3500s, big giant vehicles. And they had this new company called Pump Swappers, and they're like, yeah, we're going to buy all these trucks and all this and that. I said, well, what are they doing? Like, oh, they're replacing sump pumps. And I'm like, well, how much weight are they carrying? And he was like, oh, it's got to be a couple thousand pounds. So I told the owner, I said, put all the materials, tools, and everything that you need in the back of a truck. Go down to the transfer station, ask them to give you a ticket to weigh how much your vehicle weighs. Come back, unload everything, take it back there, tell me how much your vehicle weighs. He did that. He's like, it's 800 pounds. I'm like, great. You are now driving Transit Connects. And he's like, there's no way it's going to fit. So we built custom cabinetry and it fit. Well, now you don't have a vehicle that's over 10,000 pounds. So you don't have any US DOT issues you have to worry about. Now you don't have to get somebody who's a DOT, like health inspection type person, right? To get that. Your insurance is less. Your cost of operation is less. Your fuel costs are less. For every 1 ton diesel that I remove from the road and I put them into a Transit, they save, with gas prices right now around like $4.89 a gallon for diesel, they save $9,000 a year in fuel savings. If you go buy the brand new Ford Maverick Connect or a brand new Ford Maverick Hybrid, it'll cost you a little less than $500 a month. So it'll cost you $6,000 in the monthly payment, and you're still netting money on the savings of fuel because the fuel savings are so much. That's including the cost of fuel to go 20,000 miles. So it's crazy. So it's literally cheaper for you to park your 1 ton dually and go buy a vehicle capable of 35 miles per gallon or more, and you will have the fuel savings over $9,000 if you do 20K miles a year. And his vehicles are doing between 20 and 30,000 miles a year. But then on top of that, he has new equipment. It's nicer. It raises morale for the team. There's uniformity. You can get them. And, insurance is cheaper. The benefits are just endless. And that's the type of consulting that we do with business owners.
I love that. Is there any specific challenge that you're dealing with right now in your role at Revit Auto?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a great salesperson at the start, but I am not a great closer. I do not like pushing people to make decisions. I would like to show you what you could do better and show you what we offer, and you make the decision on your own. Sometimes I wish I closed harder because I would like to get more business. I would like to, take on another probably 300 vehicles into our fleet program. And we have the capacity to do that right now. But that's where I really struggle, is getting additional companies to sign up with us. Between meeting them in person, expanding my network is very challenging. I've thought about hiring an outside salesperson, but I don't like the idea of having a salesperson in general. But I know that's just something I need to get over as a person who runs a business and wants to grow, is that I can't wear all hats. I need to be boots on the ground, training my guys, making systems, making protocols, training, the next generation of technicians, while somebody is going out and generating the leads for me to go talk to these business owners. I just really need to go talk to one a day and just say, this is what we offered. You want to join on or not? If not, great. If you want to talk later, happy to. And I think that's where our next level of success is held up, is probably by me.
What do you think is the holdup with the business, Blair, as far as them deciding to move forward with you or not?
So some of the companies that we target are like property management companies, and those property management companies have board meetings, and there's a long process to get anything approved. The other thing is budgeting. When I present this to an owner of a company, they love it. When they hand it to their money person, the person who's the accountant of a company has a very large disconnect from the person who's actually doing the business. So there's a company, National Water Service. We do their services. They signed up for our partnership program, and they canceled it because the person who's their number person, Chris, wonderful woman, was like, hey, I don't see the value in this. And I just said, okay. So if you don't see the value, so they canceled. So they had a car breakdown in Great Falls, Virginia. They're based out of Highland, Maryland. So, going towards Clarksville. And, it's over an hour away. And it's at a job site. It's at a job site where it broke down, needed a battery. And I explained to them, I said, Chris, how much did you pay your tech? How much business are you losing by this guy not being able to leave this job site. And now you have to pay one of my employees portal to portal because it's after hours to go do this. We had scheduled to do all of their vehicle multi-point inspections. And in our multi-point inspections, we test the battery because it's so expensive for a battery to fail versus us replacing it for $200 when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So they got like a crazy, because it was after hours, we had to fight traffic. It was like 3.5 hours of drive time for my employee plus the battery. So they paid like $500 to get a battery replaced. And she was like, yeah, I just don't see the value. And
even after that,
even after that, correct. Yeah. And I said, that's fine. You don't have to see the value. But, you know, and I went to talk to the owner of the company, and the owner was like, hey, my numbers girl does the numbers. I don't do the numbers. And this is, you know, this is what she says. So I have to believe her. And I said, that's fine. You know, but I showed an example of how, and I think they were only paying like $500 a month or $600 a month for all their vehicles. So just in that one service, it would have saved them the whole month. And they just, you know, they just didn't want to do it. So that was one holdup that we have. So now I have a whole presentation that I give to the person. I'm like, hey, are you the accountant for this company? And they're like, yes, I am. And I'm like, this is 30 pages to explain to you the value of what we're offering and actual real life situations in which you will get all this money back. And since then, I've never had another, you know, bookkeeper or accountant to say, this is not, you know, this is not an option. We have to budget for this. But that was one time that happened. And I've gotten very good at channeling my frustrations into something, you know, progressive. It's like I had a bunch of employees who were late, and one time everybody was late. And I was like, boom, we're going to have a tardiness and absenteeism policy now at Revit. Made it 4 pages, had a, you know, a small little picture graph of like, you know, how many times you're absent or how many times you're late counts as an absent, counts as a consequence, counts, you know, to your termination. So you can be late 10 times in this company. There's going to be a verbal, a written, and a final written warning, and then you're terminated. You're out of the company. Now we have that. So it's like when I come into these issues, we document it, we account for it, and then when I have time, I just go through and fix them.
That's great. Most of all your customers are all business and have fleets. Yes. I'm wondering, Blair, how are you finding your customers? I don't know if you do any marketing or advertising, or is it word of mouth or a combination of everything?
All word of mouth. Everything is word of mouth. I have thought about trying to make a commercial. Trying to condense it down in the 30 seconds has been challenging. But that's what I'm working on right now. Is I'm actually working on getting an animated commercial made. That's 30 seconds that explains why you should be with Revit or not. Hopefully I'll put that on social media and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and see if some businesses, you know, jump on that.
So it's all word of mouth, meaning current customers refer you to other new customers and it grows from there? I
have had zero website. Hey, I saw your website. I'd love your business. Or email blast. Hey, you know, email blast. I want to meet with you. Zero.
Really?
It's all been people like you that hear about us and say, I know a guy. I know someone who needs you. And that's where we get our business from.
Well, how do you, I mean, the huge following you have, for example, YouTube, or even you mentioned just TikTok now and everything. I mean, there's value there. So I'm sure you're seeing something maybe, no?
The people who watch my YouTube channel are not my ideal customer. They are people who need help and they can't afford to pay someone to do it for them. So I get, you know, hundreds of comments. I probably get 10 comments a day. So, you know, anywhere from 200 to 300 comments a day.
But they're not your business owners you want.
Correct. But that's okay. I didn't do YouTube I did YouTube for those people that need help. So I've thought about just kind of starting, you know, a podcast of like, how do I deal with a disgruntled client, or, you know, get more specific to what I'm looking for. Like, hey, are you a business owner and have you ever had a truck breakdown on a job site? And this is how you could resolve it. Or if you're with Revit, it's just one phone call.
Yeah.
And that's really, you know, what I would need to shift my focus on. having the YouTube channel has helped in closing business because people can see us work and see the quality that we do on a video. And that has been very helpful. That I would say is the benefit of doing that social media, is that I can say to a client, like, they're like, well, how do I know that you even know what you're talking about? Well, like, I've helped 7 million people. I mean, and they comment like how helpful this is.
You just say Google me.
Yeah, I have never said that. I've never said you should Google me. But yesterday I did Google myself, and I was glad to see that it seemed like there's positive things on Google.
Yeah. How have you grown your channel? I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you have, is that your largest as far as digitally online with your following and everything?
Outside of the country, the TV show is on Discovery Turbo. That's larger. That's not my own platform though. It grew organically. And how I explain it to people is that when you watch my video, you save money. So people aren't excited to see Blair. They're excited to see a person teach them something. And that's ultimately what I wanted. I really wanted that to be around education, because I wanted to be a teacher, in college. And I wanted to educate people. So that's really like a passion project more than anything else. And I just had this conversation last night, was Ashley and I's 1-year anniversary. And we were talking about being famous, creating content, and growing our online presence. And I've actually wanted to take a step back from that. There was a time where I would go to a car show and I'd pull into the car show and I would just be swarmed with people asking me questions about the TV show and Andy and this build and that build. And it was only at car shows, it wasn't like like sometimes I'd be at dinner and someone would be like, hey, I see your show. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But it was like, it became annoying to go to car shows because I wanted to go and see what other people built. And what killed me was I had a guy shut his hood when I walked by because he was embarrassed. And I was like, no, I don't like that. I also had a guy come up to me in Ocean City and scream in my face that I was a terrible builder, I wasn't good at doing it, and that he was a better builder than me. And I went to his car, and let me tell you, he was a way, way, way better builder than me. And I told him, I said, this is some of the most amazing work that I think I've ever seen in life. You should have your own TV show. And I told him that. And he was like, so, taken back by, he didn't think I was going to say that, but yeah, so I needed a break from it. But I think I'm going to start making a push to get back into social media, into posting content, and to kind of, building that brand back up, because I blew up pretty quick. And then I was like, no, this isn't what I want. And now that I have had time to think about and process how I want my lifestyle to be, I think it's important to have that fan base and that influence, because it gives you power to shape and transform, other aspects of your life. And I used to get mad at actors when they would use their fame for like political agendas. And then I was like, no, actually, this is how you do it. So now I think I'm going to start making some silly content again, and some good quality content to kind of get into the correct pool of people that I need to talk to.
Yeah, and also when you blew up, Blair, you were in a totally different business.
Yeah.
Right. You were more just sort of a B to the end consumer, or just working on cars, and now you're B2B. It's very different.
Yeah. When we started the TV show, we were still doing custom builds.
Okay.
We were still helping residential clients. We were really big into YouTube. And then I just said, you know what, this isn't the way to sustainability, because I don't want something that, if I died tomorrow, right? Thanos snap, boom, Blair evaporates into dust. I want this to continue. And the way that I was growing it in the past, it all fell on me. But I genuinely think that if I was to Thanos snap into oblivion tomorrow. I genuinely think that the clients that my company has acquired and the systems that have been put into place, that my team would be able to successfully continue the company. And that's something that is really good. I went out of town for 9 days. We collected $23,000. We generated and completed $36,000 in additional business that was going to turn back in. And I said, okay, cool, we're on to something. You know, if I can be gone and answer the phone and emails and we can generate that much income, then, and that wasn't enough. Let me be clear. That wasn't enough to sustain us, but that was enough for me to say, okay, cool, we have traction. And, you know, once that number grows to a certain point, then I will know that we'll have success to grow a healthy business.
Blair, when did that transition happen during this 9-10 year period when you decided to focus on the commercial side and leave everything else residential to the side?
COVID, actually. COVID was that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at the start of COVID, I was heavy in the food service industry business. I was doing like Monumental Markets, Meat Crafters, like all these big local companies. And they all closed. I think it was like March 16th because of COVID. And I remember because I had $80,000 in tickets not paid. And the TV show was ending. And I had all this credit card debt. My parents, thank God, were able to loan me some money to float me through this time. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I was so all over the place. My clients weren't driving anymore, so no more residential customers. And all the food service industry people that I was working with, they closed up shop, you know? So I couldn't even call. There was not even an accountant to call to get money. I remember actually one guy gave me money. He gave me a check. But the check he gave me was for selling one of the trucks. And the truck was actually not on the title. The title was clean, but the truck was actually tied to a loan as a, I can't remember the word at the moment, but it's like a leverage loan, but it's
Collateral.
Oh God, collateral. Thank you. It was a collateralized loan against his entire fleet. So the guy gave me the check. He said, "Look, I know I owe you like 40K." He's like, "But I can only give you this check for 15,000." He was like, "I'm sorry." It's like, "Okay, like thanks for the check." Oh my gosh, like I have money, and I was so happy, you know. So I deposit the check. I get a phone call from an attorney from the bank that said that vehicle, because it was the check for, in the notes, it said for that vehicle, and the guy endorsed it to me, that I'd have to give the money back to the bank. So, and I spent it. I had spent the money. So I had to give the money back. And I was like so shocked. I was so pissed. And, you know, I like contacted an attorney I knew, and I was like, what can I do? And he was like, you're going to have to give the money back. Like the guy, that money wasn't even his to give you. You know, eventually he wrote me a personal check to try to help, which was great. Really good guy. But that crushed me. And then I realized, I said, okay, I need to diversify and I need to focus on businesses. So essential companies is what we go for now, service-based industries that are always going to be there. You know, no matter how little money you have, if your toilet does not flush, you are still calling the plumber. You know, no matter how much money you have or how little money you have, if your lights don't turn on, you're going to contact the electrician. And that's where we kind of started really focusing our efforts. We still work with some caterers. We still work with, you know, the two largest, in my opinion, the two largest event entertainment companies in the area, All Stage and Sound and Extraordinary Entertainment. So we're diving back into that world. But that was the big shift. That's when I said, okay, we need to be a fleet service company.
So it was thanks to, I don't want to say that, but it was thanks to COVID that you basically pivoted your business to commercial.
Yeah, we pivoted to commercial, and it was it's been challenging. I mean, even still to this day, you know, there's still many challenges to running this type of business. I have not noticed a slowdown. Everyone's talking about the economy and all this stuff, and I haven't noticed a slowdown yet. I think people are forgetting the difference between a depression and a recession. I think the media is really good at getting people to panic. I think there, are serious financial issues that we have globally. It's not going to be an easy time, but I think that I actually think that I think if you're young and you're an entrepreneur, this is the best time for you to acquire wealth, because I am going around to every single auto repair shop that I know owns the building. And I'm asking the owners, would they sell me the business? Because most of these guys went through 99, went through 07, 08, went through COVID, and now they're looking at the next financial crisis, and they're older. They don't want to deal with this. So I'm going to go to them and I literally ask them, hey, and I say things like this. Would you consider a deferred down payment on the purchase of your business? Would you sell me your business and your real estate with me? And I tell them, like, look, they're like, well, what collateral do you have? Hey, I don't have any collateral, but let's agree to a price. If I miss a payment, right, you get everything back, I get nothing, right? But if I make all my payments until the agreed amount and date, then I get everything. And like, I'm talking to one guy right now who's like, yeah, I'll take that, because then he's like, hey, if you don't make a payment or you miss a payment, or you're 30 days late on a payment, then like I get all my money back and I can resell it. I'm like, cool, there's no risk to me.
Yeah.
But like, obviously I'm going to make the payment, you know what I mean? Like, so it's, so that's kind of what you can do. And then I think it's really important that other businesses start looking at their supply chains, because if you start looking at who your largest who you purchase or who you spend the most amount of money with, you should be contacting them now and saying, hey, I think there's some strong headwinds in the future financially. What would it look like if I was a 15% partner in your business? And like, for me, I am one of my company is like one of the largest, we're the largest purchaser of parts from our auto parts place, and it's independently owned. And I asked him, I said, hey, what does a 15%, partner look like in your business? He's like, oh, I don't need any partners. I have 3 stores. I'm doing very well. I said, okay. I said, well, if you decide, please let me know. And then I just go ask the same question to every single company that I buy stuff from. Hey, what would a 15% partnership stake look like in your company? Would that require cash value? Would that require me purchasing parts from you? Because I told him, I said, look, if I had 15% in your business, I would buy all my parts from you. Right now, I only buy about 40%. The other 40% I buy from the dealer. But I'll buy it from you, and you can buy it from the dealer and just supply it to me and take your markup.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter to me, but like, that's how you start building leverage, because there are people out there who are tired of running the business that they have run, and they are looking to exit, but they don't know how. And that's when you start right now, because they're going to be like, I don't want to deal with this. And you might not be able to run a whole business, but you might be fantastic at making videos, and just go to a guy and say, hey man, I know that you don't have any money to pay me, but like, let me make you this banger video, right? And each person that mentions this banger video, I want you to give me $50 for that client lead, and they'll do that. Or you tell them, look, I want to take over your digital marketing. I want to grow your business by this much. And then I want to own a portion of your business, but it's a sliding scale. You just ask them, because there may be somebody who's like, yeah, if you came to me and you said, Blair, I could probably get you $10 million in fleet service work for 15% of your business over the next 5 years, I'd say, absolutely, dude, come on board. I'll give you 15%. You're now you're head of sales and marketing at Revit Auto. Here's 15%. At the end of the year or quarterly, you'll get a dividend of whatever our profits are for the quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Because why do I want to have 100% of $1 million when I could have 85% of 10?
It's so true. It just reminds me of a conversation I was having with a business owner who's getting up there in age. All his daughters are done with college. He's like, they don't want to be. I'm in the nuts and bolts business. They don't want to be in my business, and I'm having difficulty just hiring people just for them to work, and then hopefully find an operating partner who can pay me through time. And he's like, I don't see myself here being another 20 years. I want to be done with this.
Yeah. 80% of businesses don't sell. And then and then of that 20% that do sell, 80% of that doesn't get the number that they actually wanted, because a lot of businesses aren't built to be sold. Like if you buy a business that generates between like $1 and $5 million, you bought a job, right? If you bought that business, congratulations, you just purchased yourself a job. If you're doing between like 5 and 10 million, like you have a company that has a process. If they're doing more than 10 million, you have an industry leader. Now you have something that you're acquiring that you can then get some private equity and really blow up. So for me, my goal is to get the business to a certain stage in reoccurring revenue, use that as my 10x EBITDA, get serious equity in the game, and get somebody who's going to allow me to keep the culture of the business, but knows how to scale something up like Jiffy Lube. And that's where my plan is. And I don't care if at the end of the day that I only own 10% of the company. What I care is that my mission and my vision is consistent throughout the growth of the business, is that the culture is still there, that this place, my employees and myself, we call this a sanctuary where we work, because it is. I mean, this is where we are growing. This is our sanctuary. This is, how we're going to conquer the world and whatever pursuits that we choose, professionally or personally.
Blair, the purpose of you going out to some of these shops and offering to see if they would be willing to sell to you, are they in the residential business, or do they also do commercial? Or?
They're in the residential business.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. But I can take there's a couple ways you can grow a business. There's organic growth.
Sure.
Awesome. You can take a loan and you can just set fire to the money that you loaned and you can force growth, right? Or you can grow by acquisition. And growing by acquisition is fantastic, because if you have systems in place, then your overhead is lower. So let's say that, I'm just going to make up numbers. I do $1 million in business a year right now, and I acquire another company that also does $1 million in business. I can transfer over my operating procedures and absorb that. So I no longer need their marketing person because I have my own. I no longer need their accountant because I have my own. I no longer need their shop management software because I have my own. All I need is their clients and their techs, and then I can strip away the expenses that are in their current operation and just plug in my own, and it can absorb it because we have that capacity to scale like that. So that's why I'm asking these business owners if they want to sell, because if I can grow through acquisition, then and the owner will finance it, then basically I am growing or doubling the size of my company without having to add a ton of liability.
Well, your focus there, hypothetically speaking, let's say you do purchase a shop and they're doing residential, is to then grow the residential or still focus on the commercial side?
So I don't think I'm going to focus on residential until I revenue about $15 million a year.
Okay.
When I do go to residential, I want to go about it very different. I have really been approaching people who have gas stations, because I think that there is a market for fueling commercial vehicles at job sites. I think I could go to the Serve Pro location off Goody Drive and say it's $150 for the site visit, and it's 5 cents or 10 cents over the premium of whatever the closest gas station is, and I will fill all the tanks on. And while someone's filling the tanks, I have another guy doing a walk around inspection, checking for wiper blades, air filters, oil levels, leaks on the ground, tires, all the other stuff that my company does. And it's just about getting in front of the vehicle to see it and then trying to reduce their downtime. I'm probably 2 or 3 years away from pulling the trigger to make something like that happen. But something that would accelerate it is if I walked in the door and there was a guy who wanted to sell his gas station and there was no one else to buy it and he just wanted to get out. And then I get to go in there. Then I have a location that I can, expand my operations throughout.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Coming to an end here now, Blair, when you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Man, I honestly, dude, I work way too much. If I'm not working, I'm spending time with family. If I'm not spending time with family, I'm hanging out with Ashley. If I'm not hanging out with Ashley, well, even when I do hang out with Ashley, I'm playing Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Cold War zombies. That's like my guilty pleasure. Go to the gym, not enough. Go to the racetrack, not enough. I have a Mustang road race car. And just playing around on the farm, cleaning stuff up. But I really put it all on the line at work. I do not have that free time, but I look forward to traveling the world. I think that's going to be my next exploit in life.
That's great. Blair, if people want to know more about you, Revit Auto, where can they go to? Where can they find out more information?
RevitAuto.com. You can YouTube the word Revit Auto. You'll find a whole bunch of stuff. Google. We're pretty well reachable through all the different social medias, and our info at RevitAuto.com. I check that every single day. So if there's somebody who is really curious to say, hey, I have a fleet, but I'm in California and I would love to get your opinion. We do consultations for people all over the country, and happy to talk to anybody. Even if you're watching this podcast and you're like, man, I want to be a mobile mechanic. I have people from North Carolina that call me all the time, and they're like, hey, I want to do mobile tires. What do you suggest? And then I'll take a video of my truck and show them how I have it set up and explain it to them and tell them what I did the first 5 times and what I would do if I could do it again.
Do you record that and put it on YouTube too?
I haven't, I will though moving forward. I think that's going to be the next trajectory, is creating content that will lead to people wanting to pay for consulting services for building their own mobile Revit, servicing, and probably franchising Revit in the future too.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Blair, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time and being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for listening. I'm sorry for your ears bleeding underneath that earpiece there.
No, it's totally fine. I'm used to it.
That's great. Well, yeah, thanks for the invitation, and I'll try to connect you with a couple people that I think would have some very valuable things to share.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Take care.
Cool. All right, you too. I'll see ya.